everything now. So
Martin?
practice
No,
session.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today our session is on AI proposal writing, funding support, etc. As you can see, my name is Tony Ann Robinson Beck, and I am a consultant at MZN, and it's a pleasure to have everyone here today. So since people are just trickling in, I'd say let's just give everyone else maybe like a minute or so to join on, and then we'll begin. In the meantime, please feel free to use our chat function to just state where you're from, your organization, as well as your name, and just to get acquainted with everyone that will be in the webinar today. Okay, so we're now up to 54 participants. So we'll be starting the presentation in about, let's say, 30 seconds. Hello, Annabelle, from Network for Africa. Thanks so much for joining. Please feel free to put your name, organization, and where you're dialing in from in the chat. Hi, Marta, welcome. See Madeline and then Dennis, as well as Tom, Daniela, and Benjamin. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're just about to begin, and that will be the presentation. So, okay. So, Jonathan, you can start presentation. Okay, everyone. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to jump right into the presentation. Can you go back a bit, John, to the first slide? Yes, about us. So thank you again for joining us. Like I said before, my name is Tony Robinson Beck, and I am a consultant at MZN. With me today is Jonathan Clark, who is responsible for our marketing and promotions here at MZN. So we look forward to talking about everything artificial intelligence today. The slides and recording will be shared with you after the webinar via email. If you haven't received them afterwards, please feel free to email us at hello@mzninternational.com. We would like to give you all plenty of time for questions at the end, especially given the turnout that we have today. So please leave any questions you may have during the webinar in the Q&A function, which is separate from the chat. So the chat is where everyone is putting their names and organizations and where they're from. There's a separate Q&A function which you can utilize for questions during the webinar, which I will try to answer at the end. Next slide, please, John. Before we begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to all the NGOs we work with in our funding partnership. So we work together with these NGOs to boost their monthly funding intelligence, provide proposal development support, as well as strategic advice. So if anyone is out there who's a part of this partnership, big ups to you, and thank you again for joining. Next slide. So today we will be discussing a few things about artificial intelligence. So we'll be jumping into some practical uses, how we can utilize these tools that are available to us to basically just grow with the technology that's available and see how best we can use AI smartly. We also would like to issue a cautionary advice in the use of artificial intelligence, the importance of fact-checking whatever your preferred artificial intelligence tool generates, just to make sure that it's not giving inaccurate information. We will also be looking into the future to see what's to come and whether we need to be moving with the technology or if it's okay to just stay with what we have. Next slide. Thank you. So these are just a few of the tools that we use here at MZN. So myself, I'm partial to ChatGPT, which I'm sure everyone is at least familiar with or heard of. And we also use Gemini, which is Google's latest version of their AI tool. It was formerly called Bard, I think. We also have Consensus, which is an AI search engine for research, Fundwriter AI, which uses artificial intelligence to write quicker. There is Grantable, which is an AI-assisted grant writing tool, as well as Better Proposal, which, like the name suggests, is an AI tool for generating proposals. Next slide. Okay, so jumping into a bit about how we can use these AI tools for proposal development. So, for example, as you can see in the slide here, we could use it to upload past projects to generate track record summaries. The prompt that you see here, and a prompt is essentially just the instructions that you give to the AI tool to tell it what you would like for it to generate. So as the prompt is saying, it's saying, please summarize the enclosed project report to be used as a success track record in a proposal using a factual tone and I highlighting 3 key achievements of the project in bullet point format. So inputting this prompt would get the AI tool to generate to you these track records that you've requested in a format and however you prefer for it to be generated to you. This feature allows for like quick creation of track record summaries. It saves time and effort. And then it's used to strengthen proposals and evidence, especially for those in the future. So if you would use this tool to generate a prompt similar to what we have here, you could use it iteratively for other proposals as well. Next slide, please. We can also use AI tools for scientific referencing, and this is just to summarize the state of scientific research on a particular topic with references. So what this means is you can use AI to skim through multiple sources to get information maybe on a specific topic, as the prompt is saying there. You can also use the AI tool to generate references, like if you have information from a separate source, it could generate the reference for that source. It could be in text citation or in the bibliography, and it would be in the style that you want. You can also use AI to, compile a list of recent studies and statistics on, select thematic focus areas, as well as, like we said before, to summarize reports or research findings about a given subject in alignment with the goals of the donor or with the TOR. We could also ask artificial intelligence tools to provide an overview of the socioeconomic impact of a defined problem and the impact this has on the target group, while also giving reference to case studies and reports on the subject matter. So you can use AI to compile all this information. You can use it to identify the case studies, skim across these case studies for a central theme, whatever it may be, and then it can do referencing on the back end as well. Next slide. We can also use AI to check if we've, followed what the TOR or the request for proposal is asking us to do. And this would just be for maybe a section of your proposal or the entire thing, just to skim through to make sure we match with what is being requested. Next slide, please. And in cases where you have multiple persons with different native languages working on a particular proposal or bid with one specific submission language, you can use AI to just make sure that the language used is natural, clear, and coherent. But I would always caution to have someone with that native language to be able to double check as well. We'll go in a little bit later in these slides on why it's important to have human oversight with artificial intelligence tools. Next slide, please. So AI is getting better over time and it's performing increasingly better. On this slide, you can see a list of, I would say, very general tasks that we do every day. And this is how AI matches up to completing these tasks. So for example, you can see things like generating a list of donors for a specific location. It's doing that reasonably good. Versus things like understanding and applying the rules and regulations of a donor. This is not within a TOR, but more generally. And it usually is not very good at completing that task. In addition, when it comes to writing a convincing value for money section, that's also very weak, because a big component of artificial intelligence is you have to give it concise, coherent, and comprehensive information in order for it to generate that back to you. And this is where it's always important to have a level of experience and familiarity with the topic or the donors or strategic frameworks or things like that, just so you can double check to ensure that whatever it generates to you is factual. Next slide, please. So as we look to the future, we see a quote here from Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, and it's basically saying that, in 2 years, AI can do everything better. But for me, that everything better is a little bit open. It's very broad. So I interpret it as, AI can do some things very well, but there's also a level of uncertainty when it comes to using the tool, whether it be uncertainty with the quality of responses or if it's removing certain inherent biases. It's just a matter of ensuring that whatever you put in is generated to you in a manner that you find acceptable. So when it comes to speed and visibility, as we said before, AI is developing very quickly, and that makes it very difficult to predict its future capabilities. And there may be potential issues with governance and visibility, which compounds the risks associated with using these tools. These risks, which will be detailed a little bit better in the next slide, are right. So AI cannot differentiate between important and unimportant facts. So as I was saying before, it's about what you put into the tool and that you have this level of experience, expertise, and familiarity with the topic. AI can sound very convincing even when it's wrong. And this is a very high risk. It can be persuasive, but you have to double check to make sure that it's accurate. When it comes to fabrication, AI can invent its own information. We call that hallucination. And this is just when it generates it sounds compelling, but it makes no sense. And you have to just double check to make sure that whatever it generates to you is not falling into that category. When it comes to bias amplification, AI can reinforce human biases because it was humans that built the algorithms to begin with. This can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes, especially to marginalized communities. AI is not confidential. You need to be careful about what you put in, ensuring that there's not sensitive information going into these tools to build their algorithms. And AI does not inherently reflect specific values or create inclusive language. This, as with most other things associated with artificial intelligence, requires human oversight. And we have a quote from my boss, Chris. It's basically saying it might become intelligent one day, but that does not mean it has a conscience. And at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is just a tool. So we shouldn't be giving it an abundant amount of information or an abundant amount of trust. With everything, human oversight is key. Next slide, please. Taking on a more positive note, AI can boost locally led development if we let it and if that fits into your objectives and aspirations. So we see here that the tools, they can fundamentally change the way we structure organizations and work processes to achieve locally led development. In the next slide after this one, we'll go into a little bit more specific examples of how AI has been used by a few of our partners. But sticking to this slide, we can see that AI tools go beyond operational efficiency. They drive a fundamental transformation in the organization, specifically structures and workflows, which can enhance locally led development. AI can also help to predict funding trends, track donor priorities, and allocate program resources more efficiently and based on local needs. AI can also automate routine tasks. So where there are certain administrative tasks that are a bit tiresome and, high burden, such as, data analysis, impact and tracking, etc., this could be utilized to reduce the burden there. AI enhances rather than replaces human-led development, so it should be empowering local actors with the tools and insights to drive impactful community-led solutions. Next slide. Right, so this slide has the examples of a few of our partners who have utilized AI either for restructuring for localization or supporting proposal co-creation. Even though this webinar is about integrating AI into proposal writing, AI, as you may have gathered from this session, goes beyond grant writing. So it could be used for things like data analysis, like I mentioned before, strategy development, and maybe even decision-making support. You can use it to power your CRM systems and analytics to, help personalize outreach, predict donor interest, and optimize engagement strategies. There is a bit of a risk of falling behind when it comes to, integration of AI into your NGOs and to what extent this integration is. So just to keep that at the back of your mind, that AI is progressing at such a fast rate, that there is possibly a future where it's used quite heavily, and there's a risk of falling behind in that regard. Next slide. So let's think about this, right? We tend to overestimate potential in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. So this links back to the comment I just made about a future where AI is playing more of a leadership role in the way we conduct our development work. So just to ensure that you have all the information available to decide if this is the right decision to integrate it into your NGOs and to what extent. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So we have 3 questions in the Q&A chat. Please feel free to include others as well. So we have here from Rachel saying, going further on from the point that AI is not confidential, are there some AI platforms that do better with privacy, or was that we can protect our organization's data? So if you're using a general purpose AI tool, like a free, non-company specific subscription to ChatGPT, for example, you have to be careful about the information you're putting in, because you cannot guarantee, even if you use temporary chat, you cannot guarantee that it will not use the information you've just uploaded for training its algorithms. There's a level of confidentiality that can be assumed from a organization level subscription. So I think that would be your best bet in ensuring that the organization's data is not breached. For example, I've seen instances where organizational subscriptions to AI tools will state categorically that we will not use your information to train our language models. So, yeah. So how can AI enhance locally led development? So I think the best way to look at this is from a decentralization aspect. It's looking more so from the perspective of you have a headquarters, or I recently completed a study on North-South partnerships and how that relates to capacity building. So it's just saying that organizations that are more local or grassroots based can use AI to assume a lot of the functions that would have to be covered by like expensive recruitment processes, or getting some expert flown in for that particular purpose, etc. So it's just looking at how to, one, reduce costs, but how to use these tools in a way that would be beneficial to organizations at a reduced cost. Okay. Next question is, what would you say is the best AI tool to summarize a long document? Say, for example, creating an impact report from a trustee's report. Thank you. And this is from Leslie Eaton. I wouldn't say there's a best AI tool for this particular task that you mentioned. I've used Gemini and ChatGPT to do summaries before, and I found that they've both been able to do a pretty decent job. So yeah, it just depends on what you want to do. But when it comes to summarizing things, I think most AI tools can do that pretty decently, but with the caveat that you have to check it yourself to have that human oversight that I've mentioned. From Rachel, we have, what about Microsoft Copilot? So I haven't used that yet. I've seen it being advertised and I've read a little bit about it, but I haven't used it myself. So I can't give a categorically clear answer of whether it's good or bad. Yeah. Okay. What is the best way to write a proposal? Is it okay to write the whole proposal or different sessions? And this is from Benjamin. And then a follow-up question is, would a development partner reject a proposal because it is an AI assistant similar to the academic paper? Would they be looking for AI-supported pieces? So when it comes to writing a proposal, we have a separate training on right-winning proposals, which I'll tell you about in a bit. But everybody's process is a little bit different. The most important thing is to have the roles cleared, who does what and when, and then to have a process of what starts, what's in the middle, what ends. When it comes to whether a development partner would reject a proposal because it is AI generated, this is important because given the rise of AI, there are a lot of software given to track whether something is AI generated or not, which is why I always push to, if you're using AI, you can't use it to write your entire proposal. You can use it to check if something is fitting the TOR, RFP. You can use it to start the writing process, but it shouldn't write your entire bid. So given the rise of AI tracking software, I would say it's best to ensure that there's human involvement in the drafting and completion as best as possible. Okay, so I'll take one more question before I go through the next set of slides. Please remember to use the Q&A function for the questions. It gets a little confusing if the questions are placed in the general chat. Okay, so This question is from Cecilia. So she says, hi, I'm wondering what are some of the ethical considerations when using AI tools in proposal writing, especially when working with marginalized communities? Okay, so essentially it was just what I mentioned before. There has to be human involvement in preparing the proposal as best as possible. Personally, I like to use AI on the tail end, just to check if I've covered everything that's listed in the TOR or request for proposals. As I mentioned before, also AI has inherent human biases, and this extends to racial and social biases as well. So just to ensure that there's human involvement, human oversight to ensure that whatever you're generating is as close to reality as possible, and that the experiences and voices of persons from marginalized backgrounds are taken into account. Okay. So I think we can move to the next set of slides, Jonathan, before I wrap up the questions. So we can move to the next slide. Okay. So these are a few online training courses that we have available. This one on the left is the Right Winning Proposals. And the one on the right is about sustainable income for NGOs. So our online training courses are usually very cost effective, and they're open to persons globally. Next slide. These are our in-person training courses. We have Right Winning Proposals again, as well as NGO funding and reserves course, and then we have the Mastering Project Budgets course. Next slide, please. So this is just a bit about us, MZN International. We're invested into making organizations who have a priority of doing good to do so better. We have been supporting organizations in a variety of tasks. As a consultant, my task is to advise different NGOs on, effective funding strategies, finding opportunities, writing proposals, and the list goes on. We have been supporting over 200 NGOs to do the same. No problem. Next slide. Okay, so a little bit about our upcoming webinars. We have a webinar coming up on April 30th, and it's about 10 tips to improve your proposal budget. As you can see, I'm one of the speakers, along with my colleagues, Chris, Kat, and Betty Gould. You can register at the link above, or if you're interested, you could send us an email as well. Next slide. Thank you so much for listening, and then I guess we can jump straight back into the questions. Moving down. So we have a question from Kojo. I'm a bit late by the time. Who's a presenter for today? Well, I'm Tony Ann Robinson. Hande and Juliet couldn't make it today. Next question is there any tool to check the accuracy of the AI tools, such as ChatGPT and DeepSeek? I'm not sure if you mean to check that what they're generating is accurate in terms of does it match what is in reality, or if it's about ensuring that something isn't AI generated. Could you clarify that one for me, please? And then the last question is, are there tools that can help with log frame development, indicators, etc.? Yes, most AI tools can assist you with generating log frames, indicators, etc. You would just have to type your prompt, make sure it's as clear and factual as possible. But usually these types of requests should have human involvement within them, just to make sure that it matches to the reality that's on the ground, especially as the question I answered before I went through the trainings talked about ensuring the perspectives, aspirations, and challenges of marginal people from marginalized backgrounds are taken into account. Okay. I think those are all the questions. Jonathan, is there anything I'm missing in terms of questions? I see a few in the chat, but to avoid confusion, I'd like those questions to go into the Q&A function, please, if that's possible.
No, Tony, you're not missing anything. I think that's the last question. So far, so good. As Tony mentioned, if you do have a follow-up question, just put them into the Q&A, and we will be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. In the meantime, I can answer one or two from the chat. So from Gilly or Jilly, we've seen, have you seen any donors using AI to mark score proposals? If so, is there a way to ensure that we are writing in a way that scores high for the AI software? I haven't seen it personally, but I wouldn't say that that's not the case. Similar to similar processes that obtain when someone is sending in a resume and you have the recruitment software that checks to ensure that keywords are integrated. I think that's a good approach to incorporating into your bids and proposals overall. So yeah, just try to include as many keywords and situations that apply to the TOR or the RFP as best as possible, and then you can't go wrong. Okay, so the next question is from Marta. So she says, I've recently seen for the first time in a call for proposals, a donor asking applicants to be transparent in disclosing which AI tools were used for proposal development and how they were utilized, but haven't seen any cases where donors acknowledge the use of AI to evaluate proposals. I would be concerned if my proposal was rejected because of an algorithm. Yes, so that is a legitimate concern. I think with the rise and increasing use of artificial intelligence tools, donors will just be more likely to ask you to be upfront with what you've used. And then that corresponds with ensuring that whatever prompts or use of the AI tool that you've incorporated into the proposal, it should be as human involvement heavy as possible, just to ensure that there is, no issues with having maybe too much AI generated content and things like that. Okay. Yes, so the webinar will be, it's being recorded, and it will be shared to all participants via email. If you haven't received the email with the slides at the end of the session, you can reach out to us at hello@mzninternational.com, and we will get that to you ASAP. Okay. Okay, Benjamin is asking if we could share more information on the online training. So the online trainings, like I said before, they're open to everyone globally. They're usually at a reduced cost for general participants. If you are a member of our funding participant team, those are the NGOs that we work with on a daily basis, then you would have select cost-free options for your staff as well. So if you're interested in that, please, you can send an email to hello@mzninternational.com or to me or to Jonathan, and then we'll relay your message to our training manager, Nicole. Okay. So if there are no other questions, any comments, I think possibly we could open the floor for persons to give general feedback on the session, or maybe to ask questions in person, seeing as we have maybe 20 minutes left. So you can, I don't know how this works, John. Would they be able to signal their, raise their
Yeah,
hand?
you just raise the hands and then I'll bring them up
Yes,
stage.
yes, go ahead, please. I think there's someone with their hand raised. I think this is Kojo.
Arakojo, go ahead, ask the question, please. Just unmute yourself.
You're on mute, Kojo, so unmute yourself. Let me see if I can unmute you. I can. So you have to unmute yourself and then ask the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Once more, I say that I'm Simon Kojopil from South Sudan. It's my first time to attend this training today.
Yeah.
From 2025. I was your participant before from 2022 up to 2024, where we lasted, and we're not, joined. I'm not joined you because of so many factors. That's why I was joining you today. It is good enough to know the abbreviation of AI. Week is the first time for me to know it.
Yeah.
And then I want to also ask a question: where is Chris and the rest of the facilitators? Before Chris was there, and today I have seen Jonathan was available. So this is the only question I would like to ask. Thank you so much.
No problem. So Chris and the usual members of this webinar delivery team, they're unable to join today. So I was able to step in, and I hope I was able to deliver the same quality of presentation and to answer all your questions. Thank you, Kojo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other questions? Anything that, participants would like to share? All you have to do is just raise your hand, and we'll give you the opportunity to speak. Okay. So if there are no other questions, we do have one hand raised. Annabelle has her hand raised, Jonathan, so you could spotlight her possibly. And then Annabelle, you just have to unmute yourself.
Yes, Annabelle, just go ahead, please.
Hi there. I just wanted to ask a question about whether you can offer any advice or maybe another webinar on how to get your prompts right. Because I think that's really hard for me, using AI for not very experienced at using AI, just to make sure that I'm asking it to do the right things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we have that on the schedule, Jonathan, but that's something we could easily put together for interested participants. So if we don't already have it on the schedule, Jonathan, that's something that we can talk with the team about to see if we can get something prepared before the end of the year.
That is absolutely right, because we really listen, we take feedbacks, and Annabelle, I can assure you that we'll pass this to our team, and hopefully we can add this on our list by the end of this year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so is there anyone else who's interested in just sharing with us any feedback, any insights into any programs or webinars that you'd like to be covered for the next session? Anything at all, please raise your hand and we will bring you to spotlight and give you the floor. Okay, so if there is nothing else, I would take the time to close today's webinar. Okay, Melody, please go ahead. Or no, I just saw a hand raise.
Melody, the mic is yours. You can go ahead and ask the question. Just unmute yourself, please.
Or if that was an error, then okay. So I'm going to treat it like an error since I don't see any movement from Melody's end. Double checking if there are any hands. No more. Okay. So if that's the end of the question and answer segment, this brings our webinar to a close. I would just like to thank everyone again for joining us today. And I hope the session was informative, relevant, and useful for not only you, but also your organization. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Thank you, and bye.